Welcome to our session on FASBe Not Afraid of ASC 606. My name is Mike Carroll. I'm Product Marketing Manager at Apttus, and I'm a recurring revenue expert. And I'm a thought leader, and I've been working on enterprise industry solutions for a while now. Been with Apttus for 7 months, and I've been at 6 different startups throughout my career with a degree from University of Illinois and Santa Clara University. But I'd like to introduce our more important guests today. As a CPA, Javier Reynaldos is the Apttus subject matter expert for finance and accounting topics, having served in finance leadership and consulting roles in various industries. Javier's ERP implementation experience is helping us to shape our revenue management products. He holds a bachelor's degree and master's degree in accounting from Florida International University. Our next speaker, and prior to him, will be Mr. Brad Kuntz, who is VP of Industry Solutions from Hitachi. He's responsible for directing industry strategy, execution at the organization, and this includes industry product management, go-to-market, and technical pre-sales. He's been with Hitachi since 2010 in various roles that focus on creating industry-specific solutions built on Microsoft Dynamics. Holds an MBA from Georgia State University, and this is a first-time speaker at Accelerate. And lastly, firstly up is Ari Kaplan, our leading legal industry analyst. His most recent book, Reinventing Professional Services, Building Your Business in the Digital Marketplace, was released in Japanese, and Thomson Reuters is publishing the second edition of Opportunity Maker, which was released in 2016. He's the principal researcher for a variety of widely distributed benchmarking reports and has been a keynote speaker in events in Australia, Canada, UK, and throughout the US. Ari is the founder of Law Accountability Business Development Platform, an iPhone app, and a 2-time Ironman triathlon finisher. So this man's busy. I'll hand it over to Ari. There you go, sir. Welcome.
You're like, it always scares me when people clap before I've said a word. So I want to start with a quick question. How many people here work in a business that requires contracts for something? How many people here work in a business that's US-based? US-based business, but does business and contracting overseas? So the reason I asked this question is because we're going to talk today about a new revenue rule that is interestingly designed to affect everyone in this room. And in the US, it's called ASC 606, that was created by the Financial Accounting Standards Board. Overseas, it's IFRS 15, designed to essentially take the things that you're doing in the US, and of course, a lot of us are doing different things in different ways just domestically, and then sort of harmonize that with what's happening overseas. So I want to take you back to 1985. In 1985, I was 12, and I was just starting high school. That's a whole nother story, but yes, I started high school when I was 12. And Microsoft Windows had just come out, Windows 1.0. Gorbachev and Reagan had just met for the first time, and this strange accounting rule had just come out, this FAS 87. And does anybody remember this rule when it came out? Look, small number of hands, and then of course Javier, the expert. So this rule comes out, and it's about pensions. How are we accounting for pensions? Nobody really cares about this. There's a lot of other more important stuff. Certainly there was more important stuff for me. But what happened was, over time, this rule transformed business. It transformed the way we work. So it used to be an economy where people would stay at their job, had a pension, stayed for that pension. Then it changed because of this very minor accounting rule, to a contribution plan called a 401k. And how many people here have a 401k? How many people here have a pension? Exactly what this chart shows, right? It transformed it, and it transformed the way we work. Because it used to be we'd stay somewhere forever. Now we're completely mobile, completely portable. So when we think of a strange accounting rule, we think, it's not that important to us. Except in this case, it was incredibly important to us, as important as Windows 1.0, as important as, Gorbachev, as important to sort of geopolitics. And I want to talk to you about how this is going to affect what people are doing. So it's going to harmonize this global standard. It's going to affect public and private. Anybody here from a public company? Private company? So this is going to be effective for public companies this December. private companies a year later. Rest assured, it will affect essentially everyone. And it's going to do this. It's going to harmonize the rules. It's going to standardize your revenue recognition practices. So why is this important? These guys are going to go through the details of their expertise, but why is this important? It's important because if I sell you something and you recognize that revenue in January, same company sells the same thing your competitor, they recognize that revenue over a 12-month period, your balance sheet looks exponentially better than that of your peer, that of your competitor. There's no real transparency there, and it's not very clear who's doing better. You're actually doing the same, but the revenue recognition makes it look different. So it's sort of gaming the system a little bit, and we're trying to change that, addressing weaknesses and providing more information to investors. So I'll quickly go through what's going to be important about this. Now, everyone is going to be required to identify your contracts, really understand what your contracts are doing, what's important about them. Identify the performance obligations. When are you selling your thing? When are you giving your service? When are you providing that? What is the price? It's not just that whole number. It may be allocated over a period of time. How are you allocating? And then, of course, recognizing the revenue when it is designed to be given. So you have to first really recognize what is your performance obligation. What is the thing, the service, the product, when is it being delivered? Every obligation, as it says, has to be identified and tied to the revenue recognition process. And you see here, using technology. So any of these elements, total price, subscription term, products and services, all of these different issues, aside from the contract, what am I going to have to pay attention to? How do I'm an analyst in the legal industry, as Mike said, so I'm constantly looking at how is technology affecting the way we are managing some of our work. The transaction is affected by these explicit and implicit terms. What are those? How am I accounting for approvals? How do I get this done faster? How do I leverage technology to expedite the contracting process? And that's a big part of what this new revenue rule is. So if you're selling music, you're selling cars, you're selling software, you're selling any kind of consumer good. I want to give you a quick example, and then I'm going to turn it over to my friends. So let's say you have a SaaS subscription. Anybody here sell SaaS software? Great. Anybody in sales for SaaS software? Okay. So you sell a SaaS software product, a license for 100 people. That license is, over the course of 3 years, a $36,000 deal. $12,000 a year. Do you take that up front from a sales standpoint? Do I take it up front, or how do I allocate it? Under these rules, you're going to allocate it according to when it's used, right? Aligning the performance obligation with the price of the transaction. And as you see, it's fairly well defined. But what if it's kind of a good? What if I have a car, manufacturer retail, 15,000, but I sell it for 10,000, for 12,000. I deliver the car, I get the money, very easy. But what if I sell the car and the car comes with some sort of warranty? Does anybody sell anything with a warranty or a service period or a service contract? So then what happens? How do I value that? As you can see, I can take the revenue, I can recognize the revenue for the product as soon as I deliver, but if I have a warranty of some kind, I have to allocate it over some period of time. This hasn't been done in a uniform way. Once these rules take effect, it will. And I'm excited to hear what my fellow panelists have to say, because they will show you how the technology works, what are some key rules, and what are some key applications. So I'm going to turn it over to Brad.
Yeah, thanks,
yeah, of course.
Thanks. Welcome, everybody. My name is Brad Kuntz. I'm with Hitachi Solutions. I focus on a lot of the industry go-to-market strategy that Hitachi has, focused on our ERP and CRM-based businesses. So one of the things that I do a good bit of is talking to people in different industries and understanding how things like ASC 606 are going to affect their world. One of the things that when we were preparing for this event, we wanted to know how those things went across a wide variety of industries. What we came up with is the fact we don't have enough time in 8 minutes to talk about all the different industries. But what we did find out was something pretty interesting related to insurance. So there is a bit of a myth around how ASC 606 affects the insurance industry. So we've got a quick little instant poll here. If you've got your app out, you're certainly welcome to take it. The question is, which items are under the scope of ASC 606 according to the accounting geeks who decide such things. So this is from the working guide issue AICPA 9.1. So you can respond to this. I'll give you a little bit of a clue. For each of these, you've got to ask yourself, from an insurance contract standpoint, are they fulfilling an insurance contract or are they mitigating risk? And so there's a recognition really in the insurance agency that they're not just issuing paper around risk these days. They're doing a lot of other things that are related to the services that they provide that are above and beyond the fulfilling of a traditional insurance contract or the mitigation of risk. So take a second on this and enter your guesses, and we'll go through the answers at the end, and we might have some prizes related to that. Is it not working? Okay, so it's not working. So I'll give you the answers at the end. We'll think about it. So first of all, so the common overarching idea related to insurance is that insurance contracts are excluded from ASC 606. But that really only includes the fulfillment and risk mitigation parts of the insurance contract, and that's where things get a little interesting and a little bit hairy. And really, this is kind of where it gets fun. So if you look at the list here, health insurance contracts, obviously you are fulfilling the responsibility for that health insurance. Safety inspections and roadside assistance, these are going to be things that are dealing with risk mitigation. So of course those things would be also exempt from ASC 606. Cybersecurity activities, a title search. Title search specifically has come out as something that mitigates the risk related to property insurance. So all of these are part of that, right? All these are part of those insurance that are exempt from ASC 606. So myth, all insurance contracts are excluded from ASC 606. The truth is that not all of them. So insurance entities can also provide services, which I just mentioned. Claims, education, settlement to customers without providing insurance coverage. This is where it gets a little bit hairy. This is where you've got to think about how am I going to account for this within my systems on contracts that may be a little bit related to risk abatement, and they might be a little bit related to some other sort of services that are unrelated to mitigating the risk. So these are included in ASC 606. So health insurers sometimes do administrative contracts that are not related to risk or fulfilling their insurance part of the contract. Third-party claims administrations. We at Hitachi, we do a lot of work with a lot of different P&C insurance firms, and this is very interesting. They will write a policy, they will sell it through an agent, and traditionally the agent is the one who's supposed to service that policy. These P&C companies now are providing services where they will, as a separate workload, will go and they will service these policies on behalf of the agents. That case, you've got to really have a split piece there, where the piece related to servicing that claim is going to be a lot different than the claim itself and the paper that was issued on behalf of the carrier of the paper. So that's when we get into combined contracts. I think we're going to talk about that here in a second when we do a demo. That's really kind of the interesting part and where this stuff does get a little bit hairy. So our poll, here are the answers. So the ones in the red are within the scope of ASC 606. If you think about dental is going to fulfill the contract, immunization, safety inspections, cybersecurity, towing, for example, has been called out in this opinion as well to be something that's going to reduce risk for an auto insurer. And the rest of them are going to be ones that aren't. So that's a typo in C, but that's life insurance, a life insurance firm that has fees related to the asset management related to the life insurance policy. Performance incentives for claims managers within the insurance company. So that's going to be one too that needs to be called out. I just mentioned the P&C carrier for processing. And then the last one, high deductible P&C umbrella servicing. You could spend 80 minutes talking about the complications with that one, but that's one that needs to be called out well, and that's also been called out within the scope of the opinion. So I will turn it over to, there we go.
You missed me stage diving. So I jumped off stage to try to get the polling system working. It's not working. So I'll give you a quick introduction on the quote to cash or X to cash ecosystem and how Apttus plays in that space. So you could look at the information is coming in from anywhere from a contract or a quote or the partner or e-commerce ways of accessing the system, or it could be assets that are already owned by a customer, or X, your system that's out there that is plugging in the information about this is what the customer has, the contract, and what they own, and that propagates into an order. And the order then branches over into billing and also branches into revenue recognition, and of course all the external systems that the quote-to-cash system plugs into are shown on the far right-hand side there. But the point is that we have a system that's up and running and working, and today it works for revenue recognition for ASC 605, where the steps are evidence of arrangement, whether it's reasonably collectible or not, determining the fixed price and if it's determinable, and then the delivery has occurred and you recognize the revenue at that point. With ASC 606, the 5 steps that were outlined in the list there, we have the mechanisms built in place to handle these steps. These are the data structures, but I'm getting out of my depth here. I should really hand over the data structure discussion to Javier, but let it be known that we've been working with many customers and talking with them about what are the challenges that they're facing, and as we are hearing, different industries and different ways of conducting your business in those industries is having different business cases come out of that and different use cases come out of that. So in each of those 5 steps of identifying the contract, identifying the performance obligation, determining the transaction price, allocating the performance obligation, and then recognizing revenue, these are some of the cases that we're seeing that are activating in the business cases. So we're working on that, and what we'll show you now is one more slide that we'll do the demonstration. I was going to do a poll, but can I do a show of hands? How many people are hoping to automate this process of the ASC 606 in the near future? Okay, how many are looking at maybe 6 months, 8 months down to automating it, but let's just get it done today? That's what we're hearing from a lot of folks, is that they just need to get it done today, and then we'll automate as soon as possible. Sorry that the polling technology is not working right here. But let me hand over the demonstration to Javier.
Hi everybody, I'm Javier Reynaldos, CPA, former Chief Financial Officer. When we talk about the whatever to cash end of the quote to cash platform, it's important to remember that everything is what it is and not another thing, in that no 2 companies have the same processes, no 2 companies have the same order management systems, upstream systems, downstream systems, the same ERPs, the same fulfillment systems. No 2 companies have the same set of processes. And so the X to cash platform, or the to cash end of the platform, which is where my primary responsibility lies, Apttus performs 3 specific tasks. We integrate with your upstream and downstream systems, and we act as an orchestration platform across all of those systems, from the CRM, from CPQ, CLM, and asset-based ordering, et cetera, into all of your downstream systems. So we integrate, we orchestrate, and the last thing we do is we enable. We enable the visibility of a salesperson to understand what the entire process looks like, as well as the finance team from the back end all the way forward. And we do that by integrating all the way through. What we do in the order to cash or order through cash is we manage the timing differences between billing and between revenue recognition based on a set of rules, revenue allocation or revenue recognition rules for timing, and the billing rules as you're going to present invoices to a customer, and as those get orchestrated and processed through your ERP and their payment. Not only do we manage the timing of the initial contract, look, getting the initial one is easy. It's this part that totally is a pain in the ass. So has anyone who's ever sold a contract over a longer period of time than 1 day knows that customers change their mind, right? Things happen throughout the process. There's, especially when you come to subscriptions, there's upgrades, there's downgrades, there's renewals, there's early renewals. So if a customer understands that their renewal is coming up in 6 months, maybe I'm getting a better deal for my next renewal if I renew early. So all of those changes can get accounted for in revenue recognition, and they have to be. So what the platform does, or the key value in the platform, is to not only create the initial transaction, but to be able to modify that transaction or the life of that asset or the life of that contract over the course of time, and then create those renewals throughout. So the process of showing you really what the value of the platform is what my colleagues and I are ready to show you outside on the showroom floor, because the demo takes a bit more than the 8 minutes that I have left. So, so we're going to show you these things out there. And the first thing we're going to do is take a look through configure, price, quote, billing and invoicing. We'll create revenue recognition and then midterm contract changes with a series of use cases. So here's a method for applying ASC 606 within Apttus. The first thing is to identify the contract. Well, for Apttus, the order itself is the contract, right? And any change orders, so as asset-based ordering takes its play throughout the life of the initial contract, those changes to the assets create change orders, and those change orders become part of the life of the contract, and all of that information flows through. It flows through from wherever you created it, whether it was in CLM or CPQ, and it flows through all the way to revenue recognition and invoicing and billing schedules, et cetera. Revenue recognition rules and revenue allocation rules, those are identifying the performance obligations, and those are done at the product or service level. So we prepare the default recognition rules and the default allocation rules inside the products, and that's inside CPQ, or in CLM, it's in the agreement lines, right? When you create the agreement and you create the items that you're going to sell through the contract, those rules are applied there, and they're aggregated. Step 3 is the transaction price, and that transaction price is everything that's involved in the transaction flow. Step 4, allocating the performance obligations. Well, our allocations rules take and do those recognition. We allocate back. And step 5, we have revenue scheduling. So our revenue scheduling rules create recognition rules, and we maintain those schedules over the course of the life of the contract. As those assets change, we maintain the schedules for the change orders, and the combination of the two become the basis of what your revenue recognition is going to be. Out there on the show floor, we've got a series of products and services that we're going to touch upon, and we've covered most of the general use cases. So portal infrastructure is a usage base, so we can consume some metering. Contacts Edition is a pay-as-you-go subscription. So we're going to recognize revenue as it becomes available or earned over the course of time without recognizing any deferred revenue. CRM Enterprise is a bundle. We're going to bill that annually, but we're going to recognize the revenue ratably over the course of the contract term, and that bundle has two pieces. One is an add-on option, which increases the price of the bundle, and the second is a zero price option, which would be included. And you can consider this use case as, say, an included warranty obligation or an included maintenance or service obligation. Along with that, we've got a price for a physical good and a related support contract for the physical good that'll have a life after each year, as that renews separately from the physical good itself. Implementation fees also. And on the showroom floor, we're going to talk to you about two plans where we have professional services, and we're going to bundle these professional services, consume the hours, and based on a milestone billing plan. So we're going to take products and services that are delivered, create a billing plan for them, and just like we create a billing plan for them, we can create a milestone revenue recognition plan for those things as well, and base them on the percentage of completion or recognize the revenue for those things as they are completed. It takes about 30 minutes at least to run through a good demo. So I'm going to let our demo play here. Aaron, would you click start, please? And while this rolls out, I'm just going to reiterate the last few things that I've said. Inside the Apttus platform, it's the order that creates the contract. And orders can combine, we can combine many orders, and they can be aggregated, so the power of this is that sellers go about the process of selling. CSR reps go about the process of servicing their customers. So as the life of these transactions happen, as the course of the contracts change over time, what's happening inside the platform is that all of the accounting, all of the orchestration, all of this integration layer is already going on. So naturally, as part of doing business in other parts of the company, we're recognizing the revenue as it needs to be recognized over time. And what we're doing in that point of view is that as we create invoices, as we create the change orders, the allocation rules are driving how each part of the transaction is split and reallocated over the course of time. The recognition rules are creating new schedules that drive these things over the course of the contract term. So as changes become enacted, those changes become part of the accounting. And the value to that is that at any point in time you understand what's going on. As particularly concerning with the expected transaction price, as these things go, no one has perfect information at the beginning of the transaction, right? You might have estimates, and the accounting rules tell you that you have to estimate what you expect to receive in consideration. But over the course of time, those things change, and they change because of promotions, they change because of rebates, they change because the customer changed their mind, they change because of updates and upgrades and downgrades, et cetera, throughout that process. So the last part of ASC 606 is about disclosing and accounting for changes. So what I've got running up here at this moment is a mid-contract change where I'm taking this initial subscription, and 4 months later, we're making the subscription into an upgrade to another product. So there's a seller who's doing this job while I'm not worrying about it. And a CSR rep is doing their job, and they're interacting with the customer to provide a customer a good experience with the company. And you don't have to, which was, when I was a CFO, the biggest pain in my butt was mid-contract changes. It required a sales rep to touch it, it required a billing rep to touch it, it required back and forth with accounting and AR, and in the meantime we presented new invoices and that had to get replaced, and everything was just a nightmare to change what was a complicated contract. Well, in our system, because we're concentrated on the orchestration of these things, we're pulling together all of those processes, and because everything is what it is and not another thing, every company's different, every contract is different, the systems that we're talking to are all different up and down, and because we have this rule-based setup where we're able to talk to all of the downstream systems, we're able to do that orchestration, whereas in larger systems that are a bit more monolithic, it's much tougher to do. And so we're able to interact with your fulfillment systems, with your payment gateways, with your ERPs, no matter how many you have or which one you've got. And we do that through API transactions at a very detailed level. So here we've just completed an ABO transaction where we've got the credit on the invoice for the remaining of the first subscription, and we've added the second. This last portion that I'd like to show you over my shoulder here, which we can show you in more depth out on the floor, is our tools like XAuthor. They bring the platform and the analysis work for you to the surface so that you can work with all of these items. So here we've got the selected assets that are part of this customer's account, all of the revenues associated with them, and notice that all of the negatives in there, those are the 8 months of credit for the first item, and then as we roll along, all of this customer. So this spreadsheet here, which is something that I created in XAuthor over, it took me maybe 5-6 hours to do. I built this model of all of the data that's inside of the Apttus platform that's accessible to me. And give me another 3 or 4 hours and I'd have all of this in pivot tables so that I can create and modify and look at the analysis over the course of time for the entire contract. And here we've got the invoices that show I have my initial transaction, my credit transaction, and then my additional transaction for the new contract with the new software subscription. So as far as we roll along throughout this process, what I wanted to show you is that there's a lot of depth. I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes about what your issues are, what your use cases are, and we can at least at a minimum pull together the analogous, what's good for your situation, and in these, with at least these beginning use cases. So thank you. We're out on the showroom. We're out on the floor in the demo area, and I'd love to speak with you individually. Thanks so much.
There's one more thing. If you've got the mobile app, I think there's a prize and a quiz being pushed out to the mobile app. So if you look out at the mobile app, it should have a quiz about this session asking what is the most compelling benefit, and it's a multiple choice, choose one answer question, and when you enter that, there's a prize beyond that. So thank you to all of our speakers for their time and attention. Thank you for coming and listening to this. And again, visit Javier in the demo area for more in-depth dive into your situation, your custom business. Thank you very much.